I'm willing to make a bet with you all this morning. Given that your hope is in keeping with the basic laws of nature, I will bet that you already know all that you need to know in order to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. There are 2 or 3 ways in which I win this bet. The first is the understanding that there are some among us with the energy and time left to actually achieve their dreams in the most literal way. So, say the achievement is walking on the moon. There are some here with the talent, drive, and time ahead of them, like BB or Allie, for example, who may be able to accomplish that. So that's the first understanding. Now, what you probably want to achieve looks like an action, or the accomplishment of some action. However, the most important thing about that action is what it is doing for you, how it makes you feel. The feeling, and that the feeling behind the action is the true achievement, is the second understanding that wins this bet for me. So say you actually do walk on the moon, but it doesn't give you the feeling that you had hoped that it would. In that case, I would argue that you did not achieve what you set out to achieve. Conversely, say you somehow attain the feeling that you desire through this image of walking on the moon, the feelings underlying the image of the accomplishment, without ever making a print in the lunar dust. In that case, I would say that you have certainly accomplished what you set out to accomplish. So that's the second way that I win the bet. And the third way is just to repeat what I said earlier. You already know all that you need to know in order to achieve whatever feeling you want to achieve. You already have what you need to satisfy your deepest thirst. I don't know if this ability is learned or if it is innate or both, but I know that it's there, buried under all the anxiety of living. And the horrid irony is that the anxiety of living is produced by an unskilled reaction to that very thirst. You know what I mean. Gotta get here, gotta do that, gotta look this way, gotta get my numbers just right. My waistline, my blood sugar, my bank account, my cholesterol. And the phone is ringing, and the bills are spinning, and the kids did what? And the familiar distractions of the latest disaster, brought to you by the trusted voices who take you into the heart of the matter, after the matter, after the matter, after the matter. People rely on me to do and be so-and-so, and so I better, all of which causes us to be increasingly impatient with ourselves and with life and with each other. But there is salvation in ice cream. Just wait until after the daily tumult when I get to watch my show and unwind with some wine and ice cream. And to sleep, to dream about walking on the moon. It's buried under all this stuff, like hidden treasure, deep under the debris of a lifetime. We already know what it takes. We just don't do it. We don't dedicate our time and energy to the realization of our satisfaction, which illuminates one of the paradoxes of desire. We can desire something at a very deep level, at the level of our soul, whimpering and begging as it is, and never, ever stop to attend to it. We ignore our deepest yearning. And we do this every day. Resolution is within our ability, and yet we ignore our deepest yearnings. How insane is that? And I am a living example of this insanity. And I don't mind saying so because I think I'm in good company, or similar company anyway. Now, the resolution of this paradox is easy enough, though not necessarily encouraging. The resolution is this: we will attend to our soul when and if the pain of ignoring it finally overrides us. This is the rock bottom of enlightenment. We will acknowledge and put energy into satisfying our deepest yearnings, our soul's desire, the satisfaction of which is already within our ability and understanding only when the pain of ignoring that yearning becomes greater than our addiction to a distraction. Some rare and happy few, some odd ducks, do not need to wait for that moment. And they set upon the path more intentionally. Many, many exist forever, right prior to the threshold of rock bottom. And they live a life of agonizing tantalization. Most are aware only of the pain and unaware of their ability to make it stop. So where I've sort of isolated this yearning and pared it down to a desire for some kind of achievement, the Buddhists describe this same kind of yearning as being part of the very fabric of life itself. And this precept is part of the most fundamental doctrines of that tradition, the Four Noble Truths, as they are known. The first noble truth is that suffering and malaise is a part of all life. The second, which is what we have been dancing with this morning, is that this suffering has a cause. And that cause is essentially an irritating kind of desire, a thirst, an ever-present dissatisfaction with what is, and a concomitant reaching out for something more. This results in a lifetime of chasing one's tail. So the third and fourth noble truth offer hope. The third noble truth, described by Siddhartha Gautama Shakyamuni Buddha, is that desire can be terminated. And the fourth truth is that it is terminated through the Eightfold Path, which is a set of instructions which consists, in case you're curious, of right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and right concentration. So my faith is that Siddhartha, the Buddha, was not a being of unique spiritual endowment. My faith is that he was in most ways like most of us. He too already had everything he needed to achieve his vision. I believe that he simply cut the chatter, sat down, and started digging. I believe that we have these truths embedded in us, these Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Paths. We might call them by different names, describe them somewhat differently, but they are there, smoldering under the layers of our prerogatives. waiting for our breath, our spirit to illuminate our lives. So Buddhism is not the only religious tradition to address this thirst, this longing. In fact, echoes of it resound throughout most religions. I can even read it into the myth of original sin. That myth, which at face value is about humanity's separation from God, is more thematically about the emotional fallout of our existential dissatisfaction and yearning. Buddha comes along and recognizes that yearning is the separation. Eliminate the yearning and you eliminate the separation from satisfaction. Okay, so I don't mean to claim that all the traditions that I'm about to mention are precisely the same by any stretch, but I do suggest that they each have different vocabularies for describing some fundamental stuff. And so do you. For instance, those of you who heard our own Elizabeth Reed's recent sermon on Taoism may recall how that tradition extols the virtue of non-action, Wu Wei, which is, from my perspective, harmonious with the Buddhist observation of yearning as the root of suffering. Islam, the word, means submission to God. Now, you may not agree with the monotheistic notion, and that is fine. But do keep in mind that as Unitarian Universalists, we are free to entertain the notion that surrendering to the Tao, the way, is perhaps not so thematically different than surrendering to Allah, or the Buddhist elimination of ego need, or of awe flipping the hive switch. This is the fundamental cornerstone observation of many wise people expressing themselves through various religious traditions and vocabularies, which over the ages becomes laden with cultural baggage and political opportunism. Anyway, so we're talking about surrender now. And it's not just religion that demands this of us. Democracy calls us to the surrender to the will of the majority. You'll have your opportunity to do that after church today. So surrender is actually part of our tradition. We started off talking about achievement, and somehow we shifted to desire, and now we are ruminating about surrender. And because I can totally see how you would be wondering, yes, that was on purpose. But can you see the relationship between them? Satisfaction, desire, and surrender. We can actually play word games with them. Satisfaction surrenders desire. Desire surrenders satisfaction. Surrender satisfies desire. Satisfaction desires surrender. Your being, your soul yearns for a sense of satisfaction, which is obstructed by that very yearning. Just as your yearning, your desire manifests as the anxiety of the rat race. Surrendering your desire eliminates this obstruction. We are aided in doing this by the understanding that we already have all that we need. You already have all of that for which you are looking. It's not out there. It's not up here. It's in here. in here. It's buried deep, though. With each distraction and each obligation we accept, we heap on another layer. And it's not that our obligations prevent us from engaging our inherent wisdom, but rather that they are convenient excuses to ignore ourselves. So what to do? You know what to do. The first thing I think that I'd like to do is stop. Sit. And listen. And out of practice, I imagine that it will take me time to hear my own inherent wisdom. But I won't hear it at all if I do not give it my attention. Stop, sit, and listen. And then too, it occurs to me that given the layers through which we must travel, this job may be too mammoth for ourselves alone. Were we to undertake it entirely in solitude, we may find ourselves mistaking our wishes for our wisdom. And so lucky you. Your intuition has already guided you here. Part of this journey is the discovery of your inherent wisdom and must be done in solitude, but it cannot be done wholly in solitude. So be still, listen, and then talk about it, for as far as words can take you. It's there, waiting for you. The you yearn for is already you. The cessation of dissatisfaction is already within your ability. The realization of deep and abiding satisfaction is already within your ability. And yet there is some work to do. Or perhaps there is some non-work to do. I'm going to leave you with two attributions. The first is a paraphrase from Don Draper. I'll watch Mad Men. Mad Men. It's a show about advertising. It's fantastic. Don Draper, an advertising executive from that show, quips that happiness is the moment before you need more happiness. And then hear these words from the Sufi poet Rumi, which we've read at our poetry discussion group. He closes one of his poems with this. When you look for God, God is in the look of your eyes, in the thought of looking, nearer to you than yourself or the things that happened to you. There's no need to go outside. Be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself.